We are back here in Timmonsville, South Carolina at the Florence Motor Speedway for the running of the Aaron's 125 presented by Grand Atlantic Resort. A Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour comes into town for its second of 16 races for late model stock cars. Blake McCandless, Eric Brennan, and James Pike down on the pits. And Eric, this is what we've been waiting for since Southern National Motorsports Park. It has been a lot of anticipation building up, all the different things that you think about, all the different storylines that we've had coming into the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour this year. And we saw a lot of that hype at Southern National Motorsports Park, but I think that is well on and carried over into Florence Motor Speedway, this second race. And these drivers, they still feel that pressure and that energy that we had in our season opening race.
I agree totally. It seems as though that the energy from Southern National Motorsports Park 2 weeks ago has directly transferred over here to the Florence Motor Speedway. Granted, it is our second race of the season. It's been 14 days. A lot has happened between then and now, but it seems as though that everyone is still pretty much operating in the same mode that they were at the season opener. And that's a big deal because, as you and I were talking about prior to going on air tonight, if you look at the 32 car field that we have, there's a lot of differing agendas. The pole sitter, a local driver who has had much success here at this venue, and we heard when he was down there earlier talking with James Pike, he admitted he doesn't run that many extra distance races. He's used to running some of the local races here, finished 9th in the Florence Motor Speedway standings a year ago. He's someone who's trying to play the role of a bit of a spoiler, and there's a lot of drivers like that throughout the field. Then you get to Brendan Butterbean Queen. He's a Touring 12 driver, racing for a championship, trying to back up a win that he got here in the South Carolina 400. Jared Fryer, we're not quite sure if he's going to commit to a full-time season after running part-time last year. That's another storyline to follow. And the list goes on and on. As you look at every driver in this field, they've all got their own story to tell. The question is going to be, who's going to be able to tell that story as part of chapter number 2 for late model stocks in Victory Lane tonight?
Well, and I think you look further down the field and you think about some of the favorites and some of the best cars, some of the best teams that we have out here in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour that are starting further down that running order. And that speaks to how much these teams have continued to improve year after year this offseason. And it's a theme that when we're down to the pit area talking to these drivers, that the field is so close now. It is so competitive, and how close everybody is and how good these teams have gotten their race cars, and I think speaks to the talent that the drivers have as well, that there's just no give in the Cars Tour anymore, that you have to execute every part of your weekend, practice, qualifying, and of course this race we have coming up to put together a full weekend.
Now, we've talked about the Florence Motor Speedway several times. It's a racetrack that has stood for quite a while. In fact, opened back in the 1980s, but it was kind of revitalized back in 2020 when Steve Zacharias took the keys and ownership of this place. And you will probably see Steve several times throughout the night on our camera shots because he is pretty much running around and taking care of everything that is required. But it is hard to believe that we have only had 3 sanctioned cars late model stock races in this track's history. However, we have had, this will be now the 3rd big league late model stock race at this track in the last 5 months. South Carolina 400 was in November, the Icebreaker just a couple of months ago. But Blake, when I look at how this weekend has unfolded, we've had a warm weather practice yesterday, rain come through this morning, temperature is very different than what we had for the Icebreaker and for the 400 last fall. These teams may have pretty deep notebooks as far as how to get around this place, but they still may be dealing with quite the variable tonight.
They really are, and you think about how much it has changed when you talk about the South Carolina 400 and the Icebreaker. Cold conditions, the track was cool, it has a lot of grip, and when you talk to these drivers yesterday, especially during practice, it was 85 degrees, the sun was out, it was a beautiful Friday afternoon, and the cars handle completely different. I think as somebody, you can kind of see in the back end of your picture right there, just behind Deke McCaskill and Carson Quapple with Junior Motorsports, who has had so much speed and so much success here in some of those opening races, and then the Icebreaker just really threw them for a loop when you had Carson Quapple get lapped by the eventual winner in Doug Barnes Jr. in that race. You had Dale Earnhardt Jr. who struggled in that race as well, but yet they've had so much much success. And, talking to Carson yesterday, it threw them all for a loop, but they know what they have here and what they've brought to some of those races in the South Carolina 400 works at this racetrack. And even Carson came so close to winning a Cars Tour race here in 2021 before Caden Honeycutt was able to get by.
You see Carson there ready to do battle, just missed the top 10 for qualifying earlier today. He did win the Hedgecock Racing Pole Award back at Southern National. And speaking of his car owner and teammate back at the Icebreaker, Dale Earnhardt Jr., he's mentioned publicly he loves racing at this venue. He's got a very good reason why he's not here tonight. It's his wife's Amy's birthday. So happy birthday to Amy if they happen to be watching along from home. Hope they're having a fantastic weekend and evening, and they will be watching Carson Kvapil, who will be the lone soldier for Junior Motorsports here tonight, trying to get his first win of the season in what's been a pretty solid championship defense. Runner-up at Southern National was closing late. We mentioned the pole award. Let's see if they've got the right strategy in play here tonight to get around Florence for 125 laps.
I hope he doesn't get in trouble. If he's watching, I'm sure they have some plans tonight. But I hope he doesn't get in too much trouble for it.
You see the field now coming into formation on the main straightaway. They will line them up in the order in which they qualify. This is the second race of the 2023 Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour. Late model stocks only tonight. And then we'll take a few weeks off before we get back to a late model stock and pro late model doubleheader at the Hickory Motor Speedway, April 22nd. Of course, all of the racing action will be available live on Flow Racing all season long. And Blake, when you look at this racetrack, there are a couple of unique facets, one of which it's forgiving. In the sense there's no outside retaining wall throughout most of this venue. Pretty much only the front straightaway. Exit at turn 4, entry to turn 1. That's where you're going to encounter concrete if you go off wide to the top side. But it also has a very abrasive surface, which has always been a bit of a bugaboo for all these teams as far as how they prepare their strategy.
And that is the one word I heard more than any other talking to these drivers throughout the last couple of days is strategy, strategy, strategy. And a lot of that has been decided now that we've had qualifying. You get to kind of slide your way into the field, and you kind of have to figure out, we heard Cody Kelly talking about in his pole interview, if guys want to go, that's fine. I'm going to do my own thing, and having to balance where you want to be in those last 40 or 50 laps. That's kind of the window that most of these drivers have circled, that it's around lap 40 or lap 50 is where you want to establish yourself and where you want to go is kind of based on where you're running at that point, and hopefully you have enough tire at the end of the race to be able to challenge up front. But we have seen some of the best finishes, even though we've only had, like you mentioned, 2 races here in the Cars Tour at Florence Motor Speedway. We've seen some of the best series finishes. You think about Caden Honeycutt again a couple of years ago getting the best of Carson Kvapil, and how about the last lap pass? The first time we came here, Nolan Pope around Timothy Peters, he led 1 lap, and he didn't lead until about the last, I'd say quarter of this 0.4 of a mile racetrack.
It's pretty remarkable to say that when we were doing our history on this race and at this venue, that the driver who had took the lead to win the race in the last 2 races that were held here, it was with less than 10 laps to go. All right, we've prepped the field. We're ready to get rolling. Hopefully you are as well. Let's go down trackside to James Pike to get the Aaron's 125 underway.
And now, for the command to fire engines for the late model stock feature in the Aaron's 125 at Florence Motor Speedway, please welcome brother of Ronnie Bassett, driver the number 04, Chase.
Yep. Ready? Drivers, start your LS!
And I tell you what, that is a popular command, and I'm excited now. I'm ready to go. These drivers, these fans, a loud roar as you can hear the engines come to life here for the running of the Aaron's 125, presented by Grand Atlantic Resort. And why don't we recap the starting lineup that we touched on a little bit earlier in driver intros. Of course, Cody Kelly, the local favorite here at Florence Motor Speedway, making his series debut, is on pole in car number 98. You see Brendan Butterbean Queen right there to his outside, the South Carolina 400 winner, who was very confident in his car, ran all sorts of laps yesterday in practice. They didn't even worry about qualifying. Well, guess what? Still worked out for him outside of the front row for Brendan Butterbean Queen. Former champion and Jared Fryer there in row number 2. Connor Hall starting to the outside. And, that's somebody when we were talking pre-race that I had circled that was going to win this race. That car number 77 is going to be awful fast.
The success of that team at this racetrack is something that cannot be ignored. Chad Bryant Racing won back-to-back South Carolina 400s with Ty Majeski at the wheel. It was actually Mason Diaz, who's a teammate to Connor Hall, in this race. Mason did not have the best of qualifying efforts. He's going to start 17th, but Diaz drove from the back to the front twice in that race that took place here last November before getting involved in a late race skirmish, and he will be a second bullet in the chamber for Chad Bryant Racing. But I agree, Blake, Connor Hall is going to be one to watch.
It certainly is. You can see Connor Jones just behind them, who was a part of our pre-entry list at Southern National Motorsports Park. Well, instead, he went out to the ARCA Menard Series race in Phoenix a couple of weeks ago, finished in the top 10 of that race, and is back with us here at the Florence Motor Speedway. And, of course, the car to his outside, starting in 6, Ryan Millington, so impressive at Southern National Motorsports Park. He and his small team went out, led the most laps, finished up in the top 5, and he said in his own words, we are here to be a challenge in the Cars Tour this year.
Also picked up the iRacing Halfway Award bonus, which will be up for grabs here tonight as well for the driver who could lead at the cross flags to that of Millington. Bobby McCarty in his second race with the RNS Chassis House car is going to be starting in 7th spot. And Southern National winner Deke McCaskill, who Blake has admitted himself, Florence may not be his best racetrack. Tonight could be the night where he turns the tide. And Lainey Bice is a local driver here at the racetrack who was very impressive in her 8K performance, number 21. She timed in at 9th. And another local driver, Brian Barnhill, who has momentum on his side after a win in the Twin 40s last week, rounded out our top 10 in qualifying earlier on this afternoon.
And that's your top 10. I mean, you'll look outside the top 10 and see some of the names that are starting out here. How about Carson Quapple starting in 11th? Very strong here as well. Minnie Tyrell, one of the few drivers that has started in both Cars Tour races that we've had here at Florence Motor Speedway. I'm surprised to see Zach Miracle, who has been incredible at qualifying here in so many different types of late model stock races here at Florence Motor Speedway. 13th's not bad, but I would have anticipated that Miracle would have been a little bit further up the road. But before we get the Aaron's 125 set, let's go downstairs to our pit reporter James Pike, who has something that will definitely change the way these races are run.
Lots of big stories since we visited Southern National Motorsports Park 2 weeks ago, but one of the biggest additions that will affect everybody in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour tonight is that of a choose cone that was brought in after some incidents at Southern National, just to help clean up things on the restarts and make sure that drivers don't have any incentive to try and game things and end up on the inside or the outside. So the cone will come out 2 laps before every green flag. Drivers on the lead lap and lead lap only will be able to choose whether or not they want to start on the inside or outside, and then they have to hold their lane up through 1 to go until we get the green flag.
Thank you, James. So that's a very important point and was a pretty popular change amongst the entire field, the teams and the crews, that, especially that 03 of Brendan Butterbean Queen. I'm sure he would have liked to have had one at Southern National Motorsports Park. That inside lane worked very well there. But this is a very difficult racetrack to debut this choose cone at, because it's a little more difficult when it's 1 lane dominant. When do you want to jump up and maybe take that lane that's not as favorable? But here at Florence Motor Speedway, we are going to see this track widen out. They're going to be running low, in the middle, up top. They're going to be running everywhere.
And the imperfect science of when you exactly want to drive as aggressively and powerfully as possible in terms of trying to rip-roar your way to the front is certainly going to be a key factor in what teams decide to do as far as whether they want to line up inside or outside each time that choose cone is displayed. A little bit of housekeeping here, as it appears that we are about 1.5 laps away from the start of the Aaron's 125. Keep in mind there will be a competition caution should we run 40 green flag laps in a late model stock cars. So we'll see the volt battery caution flag. If we get 40 consecutive green flag circuits, it will not come out should that window fall in the final 25 laps of the race. That's something else these teams have to keep in mind.
Yes, and That's something that they will know. As you can see, the 1 to go signal from your flagman and Brandon Willard as the lights are out on the GXS Wraps pace truck, and we are set to go here in just a couple of moments from the Florence Motor Speedway. The anticipation has been building for several weeks, for several months in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour. We had one fantastic race at Southern National Motorsports Park, and we are set for another doozy tonight. 125 laps. Pace truck will dive to the safety of pit lane. Into the KRC power steering start zone goes Cody Kelly, and the Aaron's 125 is underway. .32 cars roar to life around this 4/10 of a mile racetrack, and on the first lap, Brendan Butterbean Queen able to work the top side and pass Cody Kelly. Queen goes to the top spot. You can see Kelly in second and Connor Hall settling in third.
The reigning South Carolina 400 winner and Brendan Queen able to work his way up towards the lead at the conclusion of lap number 1. Keep in mind, when they ran the icebreaker here, he started 29th on the field after a crash in qualifying, worked his way up to a top 5. He started on the front row tonight. He's out in front of the pack, while Connor Hall and Ryan Millington have a side-by-side battle for third, with Hall taking the spot off 4.
Hall takes the spot. Millington is able to get around Jared Fryer. And, of course, Millington, this is his first trip here to this racetrack as he settles in behind Connor Hall. He'll go down to the bottom and keeps Fryer down there and up on the top side of the racetrack. The man who's been the talk of the town here in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, Deke McCaskill, fresh off his win at Southern National Motorsports Park. And I'd have to say, for a track, admittedly, that he says he struggles at, starting in a good spot and almost making his way around Millington into turn number 3.
Yeah, Deke's definitely got that top side rolling there as he now draws to the right rear quarter panel of Connor Hall's entry for Chad Bryant Racing. Deke McCaskill in the per year tank line 08, the most recent winner on the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, now going door to door with the number 77 of Connor Hall for third.
And he's not going to be done yet. He worked the bottom at Southern National. He's working the top side of this time. Near dead heat between Connor Hall and Deke McCaskill, but third is not enough. McCaskill up to the top side. He is there on Cody Kelly. So McCaskill, you talk about this balance of patience. He wants to go to the front of the field.
This is starting to look like a super speedway race. You got the top line coming with help. Brian Barnhill is the blue nose number 5. That is about a car length behind McCaskill in turns 1 and 2. Minnie Tyrell's up there, as is the 3-time Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour late model stock champion in Bobby McCarty in the 6. So 4 cars trying to get that top lane to roll closer to the front, and McCaskill's gotten up to the door of Kelly and now squirts about a half car length ahead in 1.
And McCaskill is very popular, of course, where we were at Southern National last week, but even amongst these fans as he cuts down right in front of Kelly. Close quarters here inside the opening 10 laps, but he has secured second, and he may be looking for first here on Brendan Butterbean Queen. But McCaskill, so popular here, because he's the type of guy that will sit underneath someone else's race car and miss practice like he did last week, but he may not need practice. Top of the charts right now. Deke McCaskill running the top side. He takes the lead here on lap 10.
Could anything be any better than late model stock car racing at the Florence Motor Speedway? Look at this pack of cars, double wide throughout the entire top 10 and more, except for the front 2. McCaskill to the point in the 08. Butterbean Queen in second spot in the 03. Side-by-side battle sees Connor Hall up top. He decided to jump up to that second lane. He'll pass Cody Kelly for third.
And I tell you what, there are so many, you talk about differing agendas, there are so many different paces being set. As much as we have side by side, nearly looks like a fast pace lap here at Florence Motor Speedway. We're about a straightaway away from lap traffic, so differing strategies, different agendas here. You can see right there in your camera shot, you can see the back end of Andrew Grady, who's at the back of the field.
Well, let's hear a little bit more about our current race leader and the most recent winner on the Cars Tour, Deke McCaskill. Let's go down and check in with James Pike.
Yeah, Eric, I talked to Deke McCaskill earlier this afternoon, and he said that he felt like the car was free in the the sunlight, but then he was hoping it would tighten up as the track gained grip and we came into the 9th side. He also said, honestly, I like the high line. I kind of like running the Kyle Larson line here. I'm a high line guy. Notice how he used the high line to get to the front. Might be something we need to file away for later, depending on how the race plays out.
He definitely used the high line to get here, but he is back down on the bottom. Thank you very much, James Pike. And speaking of working the top side, somebody that started on the outskirts of the top 10, Bryant Barnhill, is on the outside of Connor Hall, and that is a battle for third. Is number 5 trying to do some work here on the Chad Bryant Racing Machine.
If you got to catch the icebreaker here on Flow Racing back in the early months of the 2023 season, Barnhill was someone who had a car that could contend, but had some exhaust damage. In fact, he tried to get that car to the end, but the driver quite literally just about fell out of the seat. The good news is Barnhill was okay, but he has come back here to a racetrack that he says means everything to his South Carolina-based family, and he has just moved car number 5 to the 2nd spot. But we have lap traffic in front of the leaders. Deke McCaskill has a pack of cars in front of him with the rest of the top 10 barreling down on the leader.
How about Minnie Tyrell, who's looking to almost go to the top spot here? He'll pass Barnhill for 2nd, and he's looking to challenge for the race lead. Shot out of a cannon, nearly out of nowhere, started all the way back in 12th, and not even 20 laps in. Minnie Tyrell working the top side, and he'll go to the point with lap traffic just up the road.
Minnie Tyrell, one of the Touring 12 drivers in this field. Look out the windshield. He's got 4 more Touring 12 competitors just in front of him. Chad McCumbee in the 16, Andrew Grady in the 1, Jacob Hefner in the 95, and Brandon Pierce in the 2, all in front of Minnie Tyrell. This could be a chance to try to get those cars a lap down early in this race if Minnie wants to push.
And again, lap down cars with this new choose rule, they are not allowed to choose if they are 1 lap down. But we've also seen this time and time before where everybody will back up to the race leaders. But I'm sure Chad McCumbee, Andrew Grady, their spotters are telling them they can see Minnie Tyrell, they can see the leaders in your window. And you can see even on the right-hand side of your screen, the battling has not ceased at all. Jared Fryer, Butterbean Queen side by side, Connor Jones there on the top. And boy, have we got ourselves one heck of a race here at Florence.
Here's the irony, or maybe not irony, maybe it's just common logic. Those 3 cars we just talked about, McCumbee, Grady, Hefner, they ran their personal best lap 1 lap ago. Now that the leader's on the same straightaway as them, let's see how hard they're willing to work to keep themselves on the lead lap without burning up their stuff too early.
Remember the driver out of Manassas, Virginia, the car number 81 of Minnie Tyrell. He led a lot in North Wilkesboro last year. He also got lapped in that race after he led early, so you have to think Minnie Tyrell is able to drive through the field, but does he have that balance? Because we know how abrasive this surface is to be able to hang on when we get into some of the later stages of this race. And I don't know which side of the screen to look on, Eric, because we have got so much good racing going on here. On the right-hand side, you can see Kelly has fallen all the way back outside the top 5 right now as he tries to just stay patient with Bice there on the top side.
That's Lady Bice in the number 21 up top of Brendan Butterbean Queen. There's a pair of your front row starters. Queen now going to kick Bice up to the 3rd lane. Way up the racetrack goes the AK Performance 21. And Bice is going to be able to keep it off the wall on the exit of 4 with Butterbean now alongside of Connor Jones, who in that black and gold number 44 on the right side of your picture, trying to, I would say, counsel patience. We saw in the South Carolina 400, he rip-roared his way up to the front of the pack, led 54 laps. Jones appears to be biding his time, kind of boxed in behind the 14 of Jared Fryer and the 77 of Connor Hall.
Well, and Connor Hall just about had a moment there off, but we talk about the fact that there's no outside retaining wall here on the back straightaway of Florence Motor Speedway, and I think his right side tires were playing nice there with the grass over the crest of that hill for just a moment as he had to back out of it in that side-by-side battle with Jared Fryer.
Can you believe watching these packs of cars, leaders top left portion of your screen with Minnie Tyrell and Deke McCaskill, and then members of the top 10 on the right-hand side of your picture? It's hard to believe they're coming to 98 laps to go in this race. Still a long way to go, but there's battles everywhere right now with the tail end of the lead pack 2 car lengths up from your leader.
Well, and again, we are still, if no caution were to come out, we're still about 13 or 14 laps away from that competition caution being waived. And I think that's the thinking for a lot of these drivers that are at the back of the field right now who are looking at potentially getting lapped. You can see Jacob Hefner, car number 95, that's just 2 cars ahead of Minnie Tyrell. Remember, the drive that he had through the field at Southern National was all the way in the back and drove literally through the entire field to get up to 6th. So you have to imagine that same strategy may be implemented here as McCaskill, Barnhill side by side for second.
Happen to notice last time through, a car on the right-hand side of your screen, the 14 of Jarrett Fryer, had a little bit of damage on the right rear bodywork of that car. Doesn't appear to be causing a problem on that right rear tire, but Fryer definitely does appear to have a sliver of bodywork that is flapping in the South Carolina breeze down the main straightaway. Just behind that of Bobby McCarty in the 6, Brendan Butterbean Queen in the 03, with Deke McCaskill holding down the battle for third on back.
Oh, and even behind this battle, they are 3 wide, or were for a second, as Kelly got shoved up the field. You could see Connor Hall kind of in the middle of that sandwich as well. 94 laps to go. And boy, I mean, this looks like we're at 5 to go here, Eric.
And how about Butterbean Queen in that 03 car for Lee Pulliam Performance? He fell back to about 8th. He's trying to get the lead from Minnie Tyrell on the main straightaway.
And he's going to be able to do it off of turn 2, back to the lead. 2 leaders in this race have been Brendan Butterbean Queen and Minnie Tyrell. And if Queen is on a surge right here, again, he's still only about a car length or so back from several of these drivers who are directly in front of him who don't want to go a lap down. Barnhill and McCaskill now trying to pounce on Minnie Tyrell for second. Millington is back in the mix. We have seen so many comers and goers in just 34 laps.
It appears as though that if you're ready to try to make some hay on the field, you have to go to the right lane, the top lane, in order to try to rocket your way around the outside of the rest of the competition. That's going to get harder as the night unfolds. These drivers know that. McCaskill now leading the freight train up top of the 08 in front of Millington in the 15, while Barnhill has solidified himself as the 3rd car on the bottom, currently trying to get back up to 3rd with Butterbean on the back bumper of the tail end of the pack.
They're side by side, and they are almost side by side with some of those cars that may be going a lap down, as Brendan Butterbean Queen is now starting to put down some traffic. Ryan Wilson, who is his first time at the Florence Motor Speedway, and talked about how much film he's kind of watched to be prepared for this race, may be in danger of going a lap down. McCarty and Millington side by side, but you can see the traffic that is holding up your race leader directly in front of Brendan Butterbean Queen, who now has his hands full with Minnie Tyrell for the race lead.
And we're about 4 laps away from the competition caution, so the last thing that this pack of cars wants to see in front of Brendan Butterbean Queen is that 03 get up to and pass them. They're 3 wide in front of the race leader, Glenski in the 28, right in the middle. Jacob Hefner inside, Brandon Pearson, the 2 on the outside, and they settle it out in turn 3.
Wilson got close, didn't he, to going over there off of the exit of turn number 2, and it's allowed the leaders to pull up to the back of them. Barnhill still challenging Tyrell for second, and so much jockeying for position all around this one concentrated spot. Just a couple of laps, mind you, before the competition caution.
I stand corrected. Brandon Pierce is up in 18th spot, the other white number 2. You said it there. Ryan Wilson is now on the verge of potentially being the last car on the lead lap, as Jacob Hefner continues to try to hold the pretty wheel down low on the inside. That battle continues with the leaders coming off of turn 2. It is the 03 of Queen, the 81 of Tyrell up top, Barnhill in the 5 behind him. 3 cars under a blanket for the top spot off 4.
If Queen can get clear, can he lap somebody just before this competition caution goes out? As Wilson side by side, they make contact with Jacob Hefner. Again, this is an opportunity for Queen to try to take out some competition that may have much better tires than what they've been doing up front.
Who wants to be the control car at that competition yellow? It is Tyrell trying to work the outside. Queen will hit the line as the Volt Battery caution waves for the 40-lap consecutive run that took place from the drop of the green flag. And it is Brendan Queen, who cycled his way back up to the front of the pack after leading lap 1, who leads us at the conclusion of lap number 40. Wow, what a start.
Well, we couldn't take a breath there for 40 laps.
Oh, that's good stuff. All 32 cars still on the lead lap. And this will provide an opportunity to point out that Jacob Hefner, who actually was able to lay claim to one of the contingency awards that is up for grabs on a weekly basis, Hefner took home the Crossroads Harley-Davidson Hard Charger Award for doing what he's doing right now back at Southern National Motorsports Park. So Hefner in that Carroll Speed Shop number 95, perhaps trying to play this strategy a bit to perfection. But 32 cars is a lot to get through in only 85 laps time.
And for more on Minnie Tyrell and that number 81 team and what they have going on this weekend, we'll toss it down to James Pike.
Plenty going on in the Minnie Tyrell camp over the course of the weekend. He's got a special guest with him this evening, his friend Jeffrey, who got connected to the team through the McLeod Health Foundation here in Florence, South Carolina, making his first ever attendance at a stock car race here. He's got sickle cell anemia, and Minnie and crew decided to invite him out to enjoy a life at the racetrack and a day here at Florence. So he got to meet up with all the crew, got to meet up with the whole team, got to see everything up close and personal. So far as Minnie's car goes, these conditions are playing into what he wanted. When I talked to him earlier this afternoon, he said, I'd rather have a track that's grippy. I'd rather have a track that's more like South Boston or Florence, where you don't necessarily have to worry about tire wear as much, and you can just go. That leans more into his driving style, and who knows, if it stays this way throughout the rest of these 125 laps, we may see Minnie Tyrell pick up his second career win in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour.
Thank you, James. And I know talking to Minnie throughout the week, it's amazing what his family is doing. Again, one of the amenities of being a touring 12 driver here in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour is getting 4 general admission tickets. And we know his philanthropic efforts and how much he does for charity, but amazing to see him bring this family out to enjoy a night at the racetrack and always trying to do something a little bit more is Minnie Tyrell. And great to see him do that, but also great to see him running in the second spot doing it.
Yeah, and so far we have seen just some incredible racing and storylines that pretty much litter the field all the way throughout. Now, being that we are here in South Carolina, I want to take a moment and spotlight a young driver who's relatively new to this type of competition for good reason. This driver hails from, this is number 67 of Cameron Boland, who is currently running in the 20th position on the racetrack. It's a family-owned operation, is that of Cameron Boland, but this is a bit of a hometown race for this youngster. And he was telling us a story, Blake, as you got a chance to catch up with him yesterday. They picked up a relatively new sponsor at the beginning of this season back in his hometown of Sharon, South Carolina. And you see Boland there on your screen. He's got several supporters. Well, the folks at the Sharon Grill in Sharon, South Carolina, committed to not only support this young driver, but also to host watch parties for the cars races all season long. The owner, David, bought 2 subscriptions to Flow Racing, one that he could have at home and one for the restaurant. Well, it was so popular at Southern National, they had to go out and buy a bigger TV for tonight's race, and they've got a packed house there at the Sharon Grill cheering on young Cameron Boland, one of the drivers who, we talk about agendas, they're taking it about 3 races at a time. He already knows he's going to have to miss 1 race because he's graduating high school this year.
Yeah, apparently that was non-negotiable with Grandma to be able to miss high school graduation. So won't be out with Langley, but otherwise plans to run the entire season. In the car just behind him, you can see the bright neon orange. They have a watch party going on as well. Two Burrows Brewery in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. The car of Dylan Wilson, the Touring 12 driver. Somebody else that actually had an interesting announcement earlier this week that he has his own beer. Yes, his own beer. It's called Neon Lager. Very fitting if you're looking at his race car right now. And that is being released. You can get it on tap at Two Burrows. And also the cans, which are racing-inspired cans. They look awesome. Those will be released Cinco de Mayo, which is when we go to Ace. So if Wilson is running up front, you can guarantee there will be plenty of Neon Lager to go around.
Yeah, you got to love all this stuff. And thanks to everyone who's out there watching along on Flow Racing, especially those areas. I think Dooley's is having a watch party in Wilkesboro tonight for that of Dylan Wilson. And I can bet that I will be at that hauler trying to test out that Neon Lager when the night is over. However, not such a good night so far for the 8F of Tate Fogelman. If that name sounds familiar for longtime late model stock competitors, his father, Jay, a longtime competitor, what was then the Pro Cup Series. Blake, first time they had the choose cone on the racetrack. And our race leader, Brendan Queen, picked the bottom. Minnie Tyrell the top side, and this is going to re-rack the field for this 85-lap run to the checkers. And if we stay green, we'll see yet another caution in 40 laps time.
I just hope we see the same racing we saw in those opening 40 laps, but now we kind of get to see the tail end of it. How many cars that have we haven't really mentioned a whole lot tonight, been running around the 15th or 20th spot, are going to be able to make their way to the front through the KRC Power Steering restart zone, and we are back underway here at Florence. Mini Tyrell not wasting a beat here as he gets by Brendan Butterbean Queen, as he will once again resume the race lead. They go side by side for third right now. Barnhill and Bobby McCarty right now for the back step of the podium.
Boy, if Mini Tyrell did not clip a few blades of grass off of 2 a lap ago, he came about as close as you could without doing so. He cements the lead. McCarty in his second race for the RNS Cars factory, I would say house car, if you will, driving for that team now as a 3-time champion in third, while Brian Barnhill in the 5 battles with Southern National Motorsports Park winner Deke McCaskill to see who will settle 4th and 5th off 2.
When talk about how much experience has played out, you could see it right there with Bobby McCarty, Deke McCaskill, 2 drivers who have been around this series for a very long time. And Bobby McCarty not content to ride around in third as he tries to look forward to second, but you see 2 drivers of which have at least 10 wins in this series, the number 6 and the 08 out here. And, well, the one driver that's not out here that has that many wins is, well, Josh Berry.
Quick update from James Pike trackside. We saw the 8F of Tate Fogelman down in the pit lane. They were making a track bar adjustment. We talked about how the handling characteristics from practice yesterday to this race here tonight have changed so much. Evidently, that team wanted to get an adjustment in on that car to that caution. Fogelman runs 29th as they're trying to help that car get a little bit more turn in the middle as the battle for second rages on the main straightaway.
Yes, it does. Brendan Butterbean Queen down to the bottom. McCarty continuing his march up through the field to try and get up to the top spot. He had a great story this week about, he's been in racing for 25 years, and he received a Facebook message that he posted on social media a little bit earlier about a fan that he met at North Wilkesboro. Of course, this young fan met many drivers there at North Wilkesboro Speedway, but Bobby went back, gave him his hat, signed his hat, and now the father of that fan wanted to reach out to him earlier this week and said how much that means to him, his family, and that kid cannot play fake race cars or ride a bike without wearing that hat. He has to have it on. And for more on Bobby McCarty, we go downstairs to James Pike.
Yeah, Blake, talked to Bobby McCarty earlier this afternoon, and he said biggest thing was that he really struggled to save tires here, which he thought was weird because he doesn't have a problem with it at Hickory, doesn't have a problem with it at Southern National. But the biggest thing he told me, I'd rather be on the bottom, but ultimately I'm going to take what the car gives me. If it handles better on the top side of the racetrack, I'll go there instead. If it handles better on the bottom, I'll go there. But I want the car to dictate where I run on the racetrack.
Thank you, James, and he is doing that to perfection here as he runs in the 4th spot. And this is a name, I know he started in 11th, but I'm not surprised that nearly 50 laps into this one, we are talking about this driver, and that is that number 8 Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet of Carson Quapple. You could throw him up into the mix as he's on the inside of Bobby McCarty, side by side, looking for 4th, and perhaps if he can get alongside Barnhill into turn number 1, maybe looking for 3rd, almost 3 wide for 3rd.
Barnhill is someone who knows this racetrack very, very well in that blue and white number 5, and you can see he's starting to flirt with even that 3rd lane a little bit. Up in 3 and 4, McCarty still thinking about sticking the nose of that 6 in the middle, while Carson Quapple continues to rim ride the bottom of the racetrack in car 8. Now Barnhill utilizing that 3rd lane to a little bit of perfection here as he pulls up alongside Queen for 2nd.
And Barnhill really slid that car off in turn 2, and those are kind of those marks and moments throughout the race where you lose your back end just a little bit, and how much that kind of heats up the rear tires, how much that does not pay off for you later. So see if Barnhill can collect it back. He is able to do it for 2nd. They're still nearly 3 wide for 3rd between McCarty, Queen, and Quapple. And then how about just out of the frame, the guy we haven't talked about too much tonight, Connor Jones, nearly in the top 5.
Connor Jones made several headlines a couple of weeks ago, competing in a big late model stock race at New River All-American Speedway, where he vocalized his distaste for tracks where sometimes you have to maintain your equipment. We talked about how the box score looked at the South Carolina 400 last November. He charged to the front, led over a quarter of the race, but faded to 22nd spot late. I say we need to tip our cap to this driver, the number 44, that currently tails this battle Quapple just outside the top 5 and 6. It appears as though he's applying the lessons learned, and he is staying right with the lead pack as Quapple, McCarty, and Queen stay all knotted up for third on back.
Jones certainly somebody that we're going to have to watch towards the tail end of this race. You can see Bobby McCarty there off the top side. Car number 6 continuing to hold Carson Quapple at bay in a battle that's lasted about the last 5 laps or so, side by side. Minnie Tyrell still your race leader up front, but last couple of laps, Barnhill has started to run him down a little bit, and a little bit of a difference for what we saw last run, I guess I should say, where lap traffic is not quite backing up to the leaders as much as we saw in that first run with 69 to go.
And we may continue to see a bit of a rubber band effect in terms of comers and goers. We touched on the highlight before we went to green. The race winner in the previous 2 cars late model stock events here at Florence Motor Speedway, each of them, in Caden Honeycutt and Nolan Pope, led 9 laps or less. We can expect this style of fierce racing to carry itself out all the way down to the checkers as they continue to battle for third on back, with Barnhill up to second, Tyrell still leading, Brendan Butterbean Queen in the 03 running in third, and it's McCarty and Quapple door to door 6 and 8 respectively.
There's a little bit of smoke coming off of Carson Quapple's right rear, it looks like. Into turn 1, we'll see it once again. He gets into the corner. And yeah, you can see a little bit of smoke there on the right side of Carson Quapple trailing out from back of that race car. And you know, that's something I actually saw in practice yesterday with that number 8 car. And you can see it's getting on the brakes into the corner.
We'll watch it again here on the main straightaway as Quapple draws just about even there, and it's a feint. It's a very light haze that you can see coming off of that right rear as the car bottoms out a bit there off 2. These two have been locked together door to door for about the last 6 laps or so as they continue to try to decide who wants to hold down 4th.
We saw it on entry, but I think we're starting to see it a little bit more, and each time through the corner it gets a little more prevalent, a little bit longer, where that smoke is billowing out. So we will continue to keep our eye on Carson Quapple, who makes a big move down to the inside of Brendan Butterbean Queen. So he's not worried about that. He's trying to get third.
Not sure if that was an orchestrated attempt by Quapple to try to get to the inside of Queen, or Queen may have elected to go to the high side. Nevertheless, they're nearly side by side off 2. Queen gets back to the pedal as they exit the corner. Trying to square up the corner is that of Quapple as they both continue to draw closer to the backside of Bryant Barnhill in the 5 for second.
And remember, this is leading up into the halfway lap sled award. So Minnie Tyrell trying to take that iRacing halfway lap leader award and the money that comes along with it.
Cross flags coming out for Minnie Tyrell and company, and we heard a special visitor there on the pit box of number 81, what it would mean to be able to take them to victory lane. We have half of the Aaron's 125 remaining, and it is now Butterbean Queen on the outside of Barnhill for second spot off turn 2, and they are approaching some lap traffic up ahead. They're about to be on the same straightaway as the tail end of the pack as the laps continue to click off. Side-by-side battle for second heads to 1.
And again, Barnhill, one of the other local favorites that has had so many laps around this racetrack, and you know, I've been really impressed with some of these drivers that frequent Florence Motor Speedway, like Bice, like Cody Kelly obviously came out and won the Hedgecock Pole Award, that these South Carolina boys, they came here to make a statement tonight against the Cars Tour.
In talking to Brian Barnhill during the week after picking up a victory in the last late model stock contest, it was a 40-lapper held here, part of the weekly racing series that Florence Motor Speedway hosts. I said, are you ready for next Saturday? He said, honestly, we're going to do everything we can. He, like all the Cars Tour competitors, has a lot of work to do during the week. They had to work diligently to get the car in place, ready, race ready, and he is putting on a perfect performance so far here tonight, representing the family at a racetrack that means so much to him. He's working the outside lane here on Butterbean, with Carson Quapple closing up here in the 4th spot.
McCarty slots in 4th, as you just mentioned. Barnhill edging ever so closer to Minnie Tyrell here at the top side as they continue to just battle all over this racetrack. However, we are starting to see a little bit more separation kind of behind this pack, where, you know, earlier on we had so many cars that were stacked up in front.
Sorry, Blake, just happened to notice we got a car off the pace, and it is Mason Diaz, one of the touring 12 drivers for Chad Bryant Racing, perhaps one of the most dominant cars we had at the South Carolina 400 last fall. That car is laboring badly. There you see him off the pace on the front stretch, the first car to go a lap down in this race, and there is something seriously amiss on Mason Diaz, number 24 car.
Yeah, we can't hear that well up in the booth, but you can tell that something has gone amiss audio-wise for us here from Mason Diaz, and what a tough break for that driver who, you know, talking with him after that South Carolina 400, how much he was looking forward to driving, not only for Chad Bryant Racing, but coming to this racetrack specifically to try and get the job done, but obviously something amiss with the power plant of that number 24 car, and it's tough luck there for Mason Diaz, who's still out on the racetrack, but definitely not rolling along as he would like to.
That car does sound like it is in fact laboring, and I wonder if Diaz is trying to do everything he can to stay out for another 8 laps, because if the race stays green, that's when we would hit our competition caution. What he does not want to have happen is Mini Tyrell to get up to the backside of Andrew Grady, who is out the windshield, to put him 1 lap down. Diaz would be eligible for the free pass when the caution flies. I'm not sure he's going to be able to make it just staying 1 lap down at the pace that car is running before we hit lap 80.
You could see, you could see the gauges flashing as Mason Diaz went by here on the front straightaway one more time, but I think you're right. They're trying to at least stay out to get to diagnose the issue when we get to the competition yellow once again, but again, continuing to just labor along here. It is so tough for Mason Diaz, and we turn back up front, Mini Tyrell, and at least from what we're hearing, potential battery issue, I think is what we're hearing the issue is on that number 24 car.
So hoping to make it to the competition caution, which will come in 5 laps time. Now, who wants to be in what spot, and can Diaz stay just 1 lap down? Here is Quapple inside of Brian Barnhill in the 5. That is for 3rd spot. Ahead of them, the 03 of Brendan Queen, who holds 2nd, and Mini Tyrell, who has been putting on a clinic at this point in the race with still under 50 laps to go, as Quapple and Barnhill nearly touch off too.
I got to say, I love the position that Carson Quapple is in right now. Has had a fast race car all weekend long, and we wondered if those troubles from the icebreaker for the Junior Motorsports crew would show themselves here as they barely squeezed by Mason Diaz. And I think they're showing right here, as they did at Southern National Motorsports Park, that they have it figured out. They love these types of racetracks that are very abrasive. You can think of North Wilkesboro and the success that they had last year. But the position he's in right now, the fact that he's surging forward, I got to think that as far as favorites are concerned, probably looking at that number 8 car.
And that battle continues again for yet another consecutive lap, as you saw the field go by Mason Diaz, who I'm not sure that car is going to have enough juice to even make it to the competition caution in about 1 lap's time. It is Tyrell, the leader, at the line, now working his way to the outside of Andrew Grady to try to put the 1 car lap down, nearly 3 wide for 2nd off the corner. Here comes Quapple trying to make some noise before they get to the yellow inside of Butterbean for 2nd.
And trying to get up, I'm sure, to be able to choose a little further up on the next restart, but also Andrew Grady cannot go a lap down, and Tyrell may try to put him a lap down. He's going to the outside here, and Grady trying to stay on the lead lap.
That's a pair of touring 12 drivers bookending your lead lap field right now. Tyrell, the leader. Grady inside on the bottom side in car 1, while they're side by side for 2nd. As they come to the line, caution flag will fly for the 2nd time tonight. It is the Volt battery yellow. 2nd time too. We've seen it for the competition yellow after 40 consecutive green flag laps, and Mini Tyrell still holds the lead.
.45 laps to go, our 2nd Volt battery caution of the night, but again, it is for the competition yellow. Mini Tyrell, Brendan Butterbean Queen, and Carson Quapple, your top 3 as we continue to roll along here in just a couple of moments on Flow Racing. Back with you live from the Florence Motor Speedway. There is a lot going on, and we'll hear more about it as we go downstairs to James Pike.
Down here in the Mason Diaz pit, where initially when he came down pit road, they looked right at the distributor to try and see if there was an issue there. He labored around for the last 10 laps of that green flag run before the competition caution, just trying to get this thing back to where he could fix it under yellow and not lose as many laps. They tried to do a few testing things, got a few electrical switches out, trying to figure out where the issue is exactly, but it's something in the electrical system with the Mason Diaz machine. That much we know.
And that is tough for Mason Diaz, who labored all that he could. But unfortunately for him, Eric, there's just not a whole lot he could do. He falls several laps down. And even if they're able to overcome this electrical issue, get back on the racetrack, it's going to be a tough night for Mason Diaz, who, again, had so much hope coming into not only this season with Chad Bryant Racing, but this racetrack in particular as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we wanted to keep our eyes on here. He was, I think the odds makers would have penciled him in as one of the potential favorites based on the success that he had here last fall in that race team. Let's check in with James Pike, who has more down trackside.
Conveniently right next to Mason Diaz, Chad McCumbee has come down pit road, making an air pressure adjustment on the left front tire of that car. Also looking at the rear end of the machine, just checking to make sure everything's okay. But smaller adjustments here for Chad McCumbee on pit road. They're still working on Mason Diaz's car right next door, trying to figure out what the problem is.
And McCumbee, one of several who have decided to come down to pit road this time. Obviously, Mason Diaz right behind him. Tate Fogelman is once again back on pit road. Jason Kitzmiller is on pit road as well. And even Andrew Grady has the hood up at the very far end of pit road. So I think this is that time of the race we talked about. This is one when you want to have enough race car to try to do something with in these last 45 laps. But I imagine many of these drivers, they're in the back. It is not going well. And at this point, why not?
Well, one of the drivers who's been a staple at the front of the pack as the field is getting set to come to the choose cone has been that of your reigning South Carolina 400 winner, Brendan Queen. Let's check in with Pike real quick to learn more about the driver of the Elite Podium Performance 03.
Yeah, Brendan Queen's had a fun time since he won the South Carolina 400 and then went to victory in the Battle of the Stars. He told me earlier today, the weirdest thing about all the success he's found is that now he can't go anywhere near his home of Chesapeake, Virginia without being noticed. He said, when we go to dinner, we get noticed. And even when I was at Busch Gardens with my girlfriend, I was on the merry-go-round and someone yelled at me from afar and said, Butterbean! So quickly becoming one of the most popular late model stock drivers in the Southeast. And why not? He's had so much success in these early days with Elite Podium Performance. Who knows what the rest of his 2023 could look like.
Love to hear that with Brendan Butterbean Queen. Thank you very much, James. Great report right there. But I think that goes to show you exactly what James was talking about. That Brendan, we talk about all the different personalities we have in this series, and he is definitely a fun personality that I think makes him a fan favorite. Everywhere we go, you hear a lot of cheers for that 03 car.
Yeah, now I saw an interview that he did with Matthew Dillner on Flow Racing as Brandon Willard is going to give the one-to-go signal. We talk about all the personalities and characters that we are building up here in the Cars Tour. One of them that could not be here tonight, Brian Obrzynski, who actually had an accident at Southern National Motorsports Park, our season opener. Unfortunately, had to put a new rear clip on that car. Spoke to Brian during the week, and he said he is intending on coming back, and he wanted all the fans to know that his mantra is, when you get knocked down, you get back up again. Had a great segment on the Stickered Up podcast. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that, I volunteer you to go back and do so. What a great character. What a great person. Hopefully we see him back soon as we're coming to the restart.
And speaking of picking it back up, I think we have to give a nod to Chase Burrows' crew, who blew an engine yesterday in practice. They burned the midnight oil getting that car ready and changing the motor out in the hotel parking lot. Of course, he runs further back in the field through the KRC Power Steering restart zone, and green flag is back out, and Brendan Butterbean Queen side by side for the race lead with Minnie Tyrell. And Queen also made a trip out earlier this week to Great Bridge Primary School and read Buster's Trip to Victory Lane to the kids, and right now runs second with Carson Quapple behind him.
Whoa, Queen got really loose there on the inside of turn number one and almost washed up into the side of Minnie Tyrell as Carson Quapple tries to make it 3 wide, but Queen slams the door shut.
Almost contact there between Carson Quapple and the 03 of Brendan Queen. Minnie Tyrell, though, still holding strong. He has a lot of speed in that 81 car, and you wondered, well, are the tires going to fade? Right now, Tyrell still looks clear to the front.
One of the drivers has been able to venture up into that third lane. Bryant Barnhill in the 5, trying to get up to and around Carson Quapple, who is holding down the third spot. Barnhill is making the topside work, and he's making some ground on him here as they come off turn 2.
Oh, and using all that real estate out there. Again, we've talked a number of times how many drivers get so close to that grass out there off of turn number 2. Barnhill's certainly one driver that if he knows where every blade of grass is, it's going to be somebody like him who has so many laps at this racetrack. But Tyrell not clear yet, under assault right now from Brendan Butterbeat Queen, still side by side with Quapple and Barnhill.
Top 4 remain glued together off of turn number 4 as they come back to the line. Quick update on Mason Diaz. They had to swap the ignition system on that number 24 car. He remains on the racetrack, but is 2 laps off the leaders. Oh. Wow. That was very close at the exit of 2 as Butterbean tried to cut off the 5 there, who had a big run on the exit of the corner, and he almost went off into the woods.
And you can see a little bit of damage there on the nose of Barnhill's car. Should be okay there. And see if Barnhill wants to take that run off of turn 2 this time. He does, but probably with a little more patience, I think, than he would have had a couple laps ago.
As the field comes off turn 4, Mason Diaz has not only brought that car back into the pit area, he has brought it right to the hauler. His race is over. Quapple in the 8 car alongside of Barnhill, who's been the local hero tonight by far, trying to wrestle his way up to and around these championship contenders and touring 12 drivers in the Cars Tour. And Barnhill is trying to hold down that spot as they're 3 wide in the middle of the pack.
3 wide, Pimbleton, Glinsky, and Jacob Hefner. Again, many of these drivers who have been waiting further back in the field. You can see it on the right-hand side of your screen. So many of those drivers who have been parking the bus in terms of saving those tires. Well, there's only 37 laps left. You got to use them while you can, and they are making some moves to try to get back to the front.
And remember, Jacob Hefner was someone who took a similar strategy and was able to parlay it into a strong finish in the season opener. But these drivers up at the front of the pack, they've only got one choice, and that is to go. They've caught back up to Mini Tyrell. Top 4 still under a blanket. A big slide by Barnhill as Quapple looks low for second.
Boy, have these fans been treated to a spectacular show here at Florence Motor Speedway, and yet there's still 35 laps to go. Mini Tyrell, your leader. Queen is clear for second. Quapple has been looking sporty and inching ever so closer to Brendan Butterbean Queen to try to make a move. You know, by the way, look at the edge of your frame. Bobby McCarty is there as well.
McCarty still in your picture. Connor Jones in the 44 rounds out your front 6 as Barnhill tries the top side yet again. He has been committed to the outside of the racetrack and is trying to make it work. We'll see if it could pay dividends over the course of this run. Gets a little loose off 4 yet again as Quapple's up to the door.
He is driving good, isn't he? Ryan Barnhill there on the top side. One of the few. We know how this track widens out, and if there's not too many guys that are going all the way up to the top, at least in this late going, to try to make it work, but Barnhill certainly is. Queen made up some time on your race leader in Mini Tyrell. And I got to say, Eric, I'm surprised that we haven't seen more drivers kind of going back and forth, that we saw drivers who were saving so much earlier on in the race, but yet it's been the cars with track position. We've pretty much had the same top 5 all night.
That's a really good point. We've seen some drivers fade or fall out of this top 5, but for the most part, this has pretty much been the key contenders and battlers here up at the head of the pack, and this fight for third just will not waver. Barnhill trying to make the top line work. Quapple will roll the bottom and go to third.
And finally able to make that move by. He has Queen in his sights. McCarty has also caught the edge of the top 5 as well. 30 laps to go. I think this is when you really start to think, if you're Mini Tyrell, he hasn't won since Tri-County a couple of years ago. He's been a part of this series for such a long time. Been in the Touring 12. You can see the opposite end of that spectrum here on the front straightaway. Look at Jacob Hefner. Was running back in the 30th position earlier, and yet here he is. He's passing McCaskill. He's passing Millington as well.
Currently showing Hefner as being 14th in the running order, trying to get up to and pass Millington for 13th on the racetrack. Hefner and company did the same thing at Southern National. I reached out to Jacob and said, how do you counsel patience to that degree, having the race leader in your rear view lap after lap after lap? He says it's tough, and he hated to use the cliche, but you have to trust the process there as far as what the game plan is, and that 95 is heading up to the front.
One of the fastest cars on the racetrack. He's just running out of time to do it. You can see he easily gets past Millington, You can see another one of the local heroes employing the exact same strategy as Jacob Hefner, as Ryan Galinsky gets to the inside of another Ryan who we were talking about at the top of the show was so impressive at Southern National Motorsports Park. But Galinsky right now teaching him a thing or two as there is caution out on the Speedway. Turn number 2, one car is spun around. It is Kitzmiller, I believe, that may be on the inside of turn 2 with 26 laps to go. We have our first caution flag of the night. The Volt battery caution being flown for a cause of incident. First time tonight.
As you see the damage there to Kitzmiller's car, let's cut down to James Pike, who's standing by with Mason Diaz.
Mason Diaz, a tough way to end the evening. What happened on your car to take you out of tonight's race?
Either electrical issue or fuel issue. Just full throttle and just wouldn't go anywhere. So it just kept going in and out and in and out. So hate it for us. I mean, we got a fast race car, but just trying to maintain tires there and just try to pick off tracks when we could. But overall, we had a really good we had a really fast car. And thank you all my guys, Chad Bryant Racing, but just wasn't our night.
Not a finish that was indicative of the speed he had tonight, was it, with Mason Diaz?
Tough night there for Mason Diaz. Comes to a close, and you can see Kitzmiller, who's able to back up that race car. But you can see the amount of damage to the nose of that car. The hood pins, at least at the front, still holding strong. But you can see Kitzmiller and obviously some contact. You can see a little bit of rear damage as well on that number 97 car. And I'm trying to look through everybody who's kind of pacing around here on the front straightaway, because I'm sure there's somebody who there's an action and there's a reaction. I imagine somebody else got the end of that as well.
Kitzmiller was actually one of the driver's spotlights, ironically, along with Mason Diaz, in the pre-race report that was put out by the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, and actually learned that Kitzmiller and company, relatively new to the late model stock car. You may have heard the name before in some ARCA races. In fact, led the season opening ARCA event at Daytona earlier this year. But that car is actually fielded pretty much out of the same shop as CR7 Motorsports. That's the Craftsman Truck Series team that Cody Robaugh races for. And to try to learn some more about what's going on with that number 97, let's go to Pike.
Lots of damage on the right front for Jason Kitzmiller. A lot of the aero ducts right in front of the radiator been in. They're just sort of looking at it at this point, not necessarily trying to work on it. I think it's more just an assessment of the damage at this stage, trying to figure out what they need to do, but plenty of work here to do under this yellow for Jason Kitzmiller to get this car fixed up.
Thanks, Pike. And just to put a bow on our conversation about Jason Kitzmiller, and also hats off to Pike, who literally sprinted from one end of the pit lane to the other to get that report for us. You see the window net coming down. We talk about different agendas and what some of these teams are planning for the season. Kitzmiller and company, they plan on running all the races up to North Wilkesboro. He ran really well there in a limited late model as part of the racetrack revival. But for Kitzmiller, it appears as though that his night tonight at Florence Motor Speedway in his late model stock car will come to a premature end. But the hope is that we will see that car, that driver, that team beyond just North Wilkesboro. But up till that point, we can expect to see that car there as well. And there's another car that has come down to the pit lane. In fact, two. To learn more about what's going on trackside, let's hear from Pike once more.
Andy Grady also in under this yellow flag. Looks like the suspension adjustment on the left front of his number 1 ABC Hosiery Gildan Chevrolet Camaro, but they've got the car down off the jacks. He takes off and back onto the track at Florence he goes.
Thank you very much, James Pike. James has been running around giving us tons of reports there.
Love it.
Doing an incredible job down there on the pit lane. And speaking of North Wilkesboro, somebody announced earlier this week that he will be making his way out to North Wilkesboro, and that is Kevin Harvick, who will be driving number 62 Hunt Brothers Pizza Ford. And man, we are so excited to see him on the track, to obviously be a part of this new ownership group. But, you know, this begs the question, Eric, who else is going to throw their hat into the ring in North Wilkesboro? Because you have to imagine Harvick, obviously Dale Earnhardt Jr. going to make their way out. There's going to be some big names in that race, and I can't wait to see over the next 2 months the social media posts and all the throwbacks and everything that'll come with those announcements.
The rumor mill is churning as far as what that entry list will look like, and we can't wait to see it. Interesting point here. We just saw the choose cone for the third time tonight, wrapping up the third caution. As Blake mentioned, the first for incident. Carson Quapple was scored third. He elected the outside, which opened the door for Bobby McCarty to slide up there to the inside of row number 2. Let's check in with Pike real quick.
Jason Kitzmiller down here. Jason, what happened to take you out of tonight's race?
We got someone clipped us on the inside. I thought he was on the outside of me, and he cut us across the back end and got us loose there coming off. Just was real impatient. We was trying to ride it out, and apparently he wasn't buying in on that.
Product of tough racing for Jason Kitzmiller.
Back with us for the restart. 27 laps to go. The pace truck is already off pit road, so Queen and Tyrell giving plenty of room before they get to the KRC Power Steering restart zone. 27 laps left at Florence Motor Speedway, and we are back underway as they pass the Tim Tolson flag stand, and Tyrell and Queen side by side. Quapple is clear for third.
Quapple up in the third spot. He'll cut down to the bottom, low side there in front of Bobby McCarty in the 6. Mini Tyrell trying to hold the top side on Brendan Queen for the lead. Queen had the lead by half a car length. At the start-finish line, he slides his way into turn 1 with Quapple looking low for the top spot.
Oh, and they almost make contact. Is this the first time we've seen Tyrell back on the outside there in that number 81 car since he passed the entire field to get up there to the top spot? New leader once again, Brendan Queen to the top spot here with 24 to go, and Carson Quapple wants a part of it as well.
Also starting to see the back end of that 03 step out under braking going into turn 1. The last couple of laps, this time able to keep the car pointed straight. Quapple trying to fill the hole on the bottom side here of Tyrell, who gets a great launch off the corner. Doesn't quite concede the race lead just yet. He'll slide between Queen and Quapple, but only momentarily as Carson gets him up off the bottom.
More newcomers starting to work their way into the top 10 throughout the field, but now is the battle for second, side by side. Quapple down to the bottom, clear. Oh, just so much of Mini Tyrell. He gets the job done. He goes to second. Barnhill way up the racetrack. And how about behind Brian Barnhill, Ronnie Bassett Jr. is a part of the mix as well. That bright orange neon car that you can see in the background, he has come from out of nowhere up into the top 7.
As the field comes down the main straightaway, it is now Queen, Quapple. These two ran nose to tail coming to the checkered flag at the South Carolina 400, the biggest race that Florence Motor Speedway puts on year after year. And right now they find themselves in the top 2 spots. Mini Tyrell 3rd, McCarty 4th, Barnhill 5th, and here comes that Jerry Hunt Supercenter 04 of Ronnie Bassett Jr., just as Blake mentioned, trying to crack the top 5.
And boy, did Bassett's team do an incredible job to get this car ready. Ripped the whole right side door off of that car just a couple weeks ago. And talking with Ronnie yesterday, he was so excited to get back to late model stock car racing, to have a chance. You know, our guys work so hard. We don't want to come out here and run for 15th or 20th on a good day. So they step back from the NASCAR Xfinity Series, are back here in the late model stock car world. And boy, what a run he is having here late in the going. He's by the local hero in Barnhill, and Ronnie Bassett Jr. up to the top 5.
Yeah, he's got veteran spotting prowess in his ears tonight, and Charlie Brown, who it just so happened that he was able to make this race. Not sure he'll be able to work with this team throughout much more of the season. As Quapple starts to close, let's check in with James Pike.
Earlier today, I talked to Carson Quapple, and he said that under the sun he was a little bit tight, that he wanted to free it up more. A little bit of the opposite of what we've seen of most of the drivers in this field. Big thing, though, for him, he said he likes his car on the bottom way more than he does the top. If he's got the choice, he'd rather be down that way. But we'll see what the situation calls for with Butter Bean Queen.
We'll see indeed. Is now Queen under assault here from Quapple as he took a peek to the outside in turn number 1. 16 laps to go, and as if we haven't seen enough fantastic racing here. Quapple challenging for the race lead. You can see the brake rotors starting to glow a little bit there with Quapple as he is all over the truck lid of Brendan Butterbean Queen to the top side here at Florence.
Queen seems committed to the bottom of the racetrack, but Quapple gets a great drive off. He may have a fender inside as they come to 3. They make a little bit of contact in the 3rd corner, and Quapple's trying to gouge his way to the bottom.
Side by side, this is about the time when he lost to Caden Honeycutt that he lost the lead, and now he's trying to get a win here at Florence Motor Speedway. To the top side, though, Queen has the advantage. 14 laps to go, and these top 2 have really separated themselves. So it is a 2-horse race here in the Aaron's 125.
I like what Quapple did there. He backed off coming off corner exit as they were coming down the main straightaway and to the start-finish line as the field flashes by our speed shot on the front stretch. Quapple and Queen side by side. Check that nose to tail as they go to turn number 3. Queen now still holds the advantage off of turn 4. Quapple looking high.
We're going to stick with this right now. Working through some technical difficulties as Brendan Butterbean Queen down to the top side of turn 2. He still maintains the advantage on Carson Quapple. Nearly 10 car lengths clear. Mini Tyrell, you're going to see it work into your shot. And there's one car at the very entrance of pit road that is spun around. I believe it is Tate Fogelman. And indeed it is. So that battle for the race lead will cease for the moment. And for the second time tonight, the Volt Battery caution flag will wave for a cause of incident. 4th time overall.
Yeah, the caution flag coming at a pretty good time for us here. If you notice, we've been sticking with the speed shot here. The 2 top cams that we have positioned here at the Florence Motor Speedway. We understand that there has been a power outage there on that side of the building. So this yellow with 12 to go is offering us and our team that has been working diligently all weekend long a chance to hopefully try to rectify that circumstance here with the yellow flag waving with 12 circuits remaining.
First person we just saw running behind us in the booth, Steve Zacharias. So he is aware and right on it.
And we got the thumbs up from our team here, so we will in fact have them back up and running here as we are getting set for what is going to be a frantic run to the finish. And boy, I'll tell you, from a bias perspective, full transparency, was happy to see that yellow there to offer our team a chance to react to the unfortunate circumstances that plagued us here from the tower. But I didn't want to see that battle come to an end just yet. That was too good at the front.
It was so good. You know, I wouldn't have minded a radio style call. I could go for that any day of the week. But you see a couple of cars who have made their way onto pit road. You can see Tate Fogelman. There we go. Team working hard here at Flow Racing. And it looks like, again, when we go back to the caution flag, we go back to the last completed lap. It was Brendan Queen who had the lead on Carson Quapple right there. And this really brings an opportunity to really open this up because Queen and Quapple, we mentioned they're about half a straightaway in front of Mini Tyrell when that caution came out. So that brings these guys in. And I tell you what, Ronnie Bassett Jr., one of the fastest cars on the racetrack those last couple of laps. I know we didn't get to talk about him a ton tonight because RBJ was just hanging out and riding along. But boy, does he have a fast machine late in these stages.
And I have to say as well here, as Mini Tyrell led the majority of the laps, also picked up the iRacing halfway leader bonus that was put up this season in 2023, and they'll be coming to the choose cone this time by. I honestly thought with the pace that 81 had at the beginning of this race that we were going to see him start to fade at some point. He's been hanging right there in the top 3 pretty much all night long as Brendan Queen elects the top side. Carson Quapple is going to have the inside of row number 1. Blake on the last restart, it was Queen on the inside. He almost slid up into the side of the 8. This time he's not going to give himself that chance to make that mistake.
And I like Bassett here taking the top side of road number 2. It's going to be the best passing lane in my opinion. As you can see them trying to do their best to warm up the tires. We will take the 1 to go this next time by as we get the 2 to go each trip by the choose cone. And you know, I got to give a shout out. The choose cone really working out in the situation. Glad that they did it. Again, it was a very popular change amongst the drivers, but I don't know who to say who the favorite is. You got Quapple, you got Queen. Bassett is on the charge, and what a win it would be for that 04, that family operation based out of Lexington, North Carolina. Ronnie Bassett Jr., it would be quite a story if he were to win this race.
Half a lap in the restart. One of the points I wanted to make earlier, you touched on Brendan Butterbean Queen reading Buster's trip to Victory Lane to all those students at that school he was able to visit. I bet he would love to go back and read him the winner's check if he was able to hold off Carson Quapple as we are getting set for a 12-lap sprint to the finish.
12 laps to go into the KRC power steering restart zone as Queen slowly crawling the field up to speed. He is really slowing him down, trying to make him guess. And with 12 laps to go, we're back underway. Queen is sideways. Here comes Carson Quapple up to the inside. Queen will hold him at bay, though. A tough restart there, though, for that 0-3. In trouble in turn 1, Isabella Robusto and Ryan Wilson tangle. Caution flag is out once again.
Oh boy, it looked as though we were about to have a very physical fight for the top spot when Isabella Robusto, who experienced some misfortune in the season opener after she had to retire from Southern National early due to an overheating problem. The same could be said for Ryan Wilson, who battled an ill-handling car, and those two are now locked together at the entrance to turn 1, with Robusto's Mobile 1 number 55 appearing to sustain the worst of that damage. Cameron Bolin is in the garage area with damage to the front end of that race car.
And Cameron Bolin, you can see the damage on that race car. Tough break for him, tough break for Isabella Robusto, who did not get to finish our opening race at Southern National Motorsports Park either. Had a mechanical issue befall that race car. I think she's still trying to get it fired up. The window net is still up there for Isabella Robusto.
You can see the left rear tire completely down, almost ripped completely off the wheel. You have to wonder how much damage there may be there on the rear end housing of that number 55. You know, Boo Carlisle has come on board with the Cars Tour to do some of his vlogs and put together some of the stories of competitors. You see Cameron Bolin climbing out of his car. Boo did a fantastic job capturing Mason Diaz's race at Southern National for the season opener. It turns out that Isabella Robusto is one of the cars that he was following here this afternoon. So this is not the way that anybody wanted that event to unfold or for this race to end, as Robusto is currently getting set to go on the hook there, if you will.
We're going to take one more look at this. It looks like, and from what we're hearing, is that somebody missed a shift, and I think you can see kind of the stack up here. I believe it's behind Barnhill. Watch Chad McCumbee here. Burrow has damage, Millington, and then McCumbee checking up for it. You could see Bolin has nowhere to go. Burrow already has the damage. Oh no.
Wilson climbed over the left rear of Isabella Robusto's car in that stack up. Unfortunately, Wilson and Robusto were about the 6th or 7th car in this incident, where I believe Brian Barnhill may have been the first car to kind of check up that outside lane.
You could already see Chase Burrows, again, tough break for his team as he had damage. We mentioned that they changed the engine in the hotel parking lot at about midnight last night to get that ready after they blew a motor. It is tough. As long as we've had this race, it has been, honestly, personally, Eric, one of the best late model stock car races. I know as an announcer you're supposed to say that, but this has truly been one of those races, and we have done it clean up to this point, but unfortunate to see these cars fall out of this stage.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when we're talking about a talent such as Isabella Robusto, who is committed to racing almost 70 times in this calendar year, full-time on the pro late models, full-time on the late model stock tour, also going to run in some GT competition as well. There's going to be several days where Isabella has to go out and compete in a GT event and then fly into whatever local airport that is closest to where the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour will be racing. And unfortunately, that is back-to-back DNF finishes for one of our Touring 12 drivers, the very impressive Isabella Robusto, who had a top 5 finish here at the South Carolina 400 last fall. So she was definitely coming in here with some momentum, but this has been the battle up at the front. We're going to see how it all pans out when we come back to the Florence Motor Speedway with the Cars Tour getting set to wrap up their second race of the season here on Flow Racing.
And we are back here at Florence Motor Speedway in Timmonsville, South Carolina. Blake McCandless, Eric Brennan, and James Pike down on pit road with you for the Aaron's 125, presented by Grand Atlantic Resorts. If you're just tuning in, boy, have you missed one heck of a night here at Florence Motor Speedway. 2 local divisions, and highlighted by this incredible battle that we have seen with really 3 drivers primarily up front that are still up front. Brendan Queen, Carson Quapple, Minnie Tyrell, and they have Ronnie Bassett Jr., one of the cars that we have seen really move their way up through the field. Now, we are also hearing from race control that they do not want quite what we were seeing on that last restart, where Queen gave about half of a racetrack to the pace truck and was really crawling and slowing them up, but they've been told to clean it up. No penalties being issued out, but just a warning there for the 03 car. Yeah, they came into that KRC power steering restart zone exceptionally slow, and that may have been one of the accordion effects as to what triggered that most recent caution that did take out several drivers who were having solid runs here throughout the night. But as you mentioned, we're at this point in this race now where things could and almost have gotten a little physical, and we may not be done yet. And we talked throughout the broadcast about differing agendas. Well, the top 2 are racing for the late model stock championship. Same with the driver who runs 3rd. We were also told Ronnie Bassett Jr. intends on running full-time if at all possible, as does row number 3 and Bobby McCarty. Connor Jones is an annual entry, even though he missed the season opener. All these drivers, they have a similar agenda as far as how they want their season to unfold, but to win on this stage with this series is something that could mean so much to any short track racer or late model stock competitor. And if you're that close to the front, you can't let this opportunity slip away. No, and you can't let any opportunity slip away. The one thing we continue to hear from these drivers as we talk to them in media day, and we've been around the pit area both at Southern National and here at Florence Motor Speedway, is how every single race, I know it sounds cliche that you can't afford to give up an opportunity, but with how competitive this Cars Tour is, you can't have an off night. You can't have bad weeks, and every single race so important to how this picture will play out in terms of the championship. Quapple did his part at Southern National, almost won the race, but got the pole and the 2 points that come with winning that pole award. And we will see who gets it done tonight. Brendan Butterbean Queen on the top side, Carson Quapple on the inside, Bassett and Tyrell in tow. We will once again get things going through the KRC Power Steering restart zone with 12 laps to go here at Florence. Green flag is back out, and they are dead even into turn 1. A little contact made between your top 2 as well, and Quapple not quite clear as they looked to almost go 3 wide. Bassett clears for 3rd. Bassett was able to come across the bow of Minnie Tyrell. He tags the backside of Brendan Queen for 2nd spot. Quapple breaks free as they're double wide from 2nd on back. Bassett to the bottom. And Carson Quapple says, thank you very much, as they battle for 2nd. Queen still holding strong there on the top side. Ronnie Bassett Jr. continuing his march through the field after they touched off of turn 2. They nearly do it yet again. And you also have Connor Jones you can throw to the mix as well. Everybody is on the go button now. 10 laps to settle it here at Florence. Bassett hugging the bottom with Connor Jones just behind in the 44. Brian Barnhill continues to hold steady in the top 10 while Minnie Tyrell is up the inside. Here comes Carson Quapple, the race leader, while the battle for 2nd continues to play bumper tag. And as these 2 continue to battle, Carson Quapple, this is exactly wants to see in his rear view mirror. Continuing to battle, Queen is clear for 2nd. Now Connor Jones to the back of Ronnie Bassett Jr. in this battle that has not ceased. 9 laps to go. Bassett on the low side continues to try to draw even with Queen for that 2nd spot as you see the racing continuing throughout the top 10. So far, Connor Jones has not quite been able to get up close enough to Bassett to try to make it 3 wide. Bassett washes up the racetrack into the door of Brendan Queen. Bassett, you can see right there, he's trying to get back to the throttle. Only 7 laps to go. That's exactly what you see. Cars sliding off of turn 4 late in the going here at Florence Motor Speedway. Mere inches off of each other once again. Connor Jones, poor guy, he has nowhere to go as they almost touch once again off of turn 4. You can see the damage on Bassett's car. Yeah, that time Bassett tried to use a little bit of muscle to get up to him on the long side. The 03 of Brendan Queen. Connor Jones been playing nice. That's going to run out as well. 5 to go next time. Bassett
Carson and Queen nearly come together, while Quaffle continues to try to drive further away from this pack. They are still door to door at the line with 5 to go.
And 3 wide just at the edge of your frame. Behind them as Barnhill is nearly ripping the cushion. You see Jacob Hefner, who saved his tires, has driven back through the field, battling with Bobby McCarty, who makes contact with Barnhill off of turn number 2. 3 wide once again. There's not enough space there, and McCarty leans on Barnhill, almost into the outside retaining wall.
4 to go that time. Hefner still hugging the bottom. Here's the race, not only for second, but for the lead. 0.8 of a second is the gap that Carson Quaffle has been able to build up on Brendan Queen, who now hugs the bottom of the racetrack. Does he have enough time to catch Carson Quaffle? Last time around, Butterbean was a little bit quicker.
Just don't know if he ran out of time. 3 laps to go. You continue to see Bobby McCarty and Brian Barnhill battling at the outskirts of the top 10, but back up front, you can see that lead. Quaffle has built himself a little bit of a gap here with 2 to go.
Last time around, Quaffle was able to open up about 1/10 of a second on Butterbean, who now decides to change his lineup a little bit on the inside of the racetrack in turns 1 and 2. Time may be running out as here comes Carson Quaffle, our defending champion, to the white flag.
White flag in the air. One more trip around for Carson Quaffle. He finished second in each of the last 2 South Carolina 400s. He and Junior Motorsports struggled here in the icebreaker, but they will put those worries to rest off of turn 4 for the final time. A checkered flag in hand, and Carson Quaffle wins the Aaron's 125, presented by Grand Atlantic Resort.
Brendan Queen comes home in second. Ronnie Bassett Jr. going to round out your podium with Connor Jones and Jacob Hefner with a hard charge up to the top 5. But Carson Quaffle has started off his championship defense with a pair of top 2 finishes and a victory here at Florence.
And I don't think they can make a bigger statement here, Eric, that they are once again going to contend for this championship as he pulls down to the apron and will turn back to face all the fans here at Florence Motor Speedway. Let them hear him, fans. Carson Quaffle, your winner.
I'll tell you what, Blake, we talked leading into Southern National. After watching both Carson and Dale Earnhardt Jr. struggle here a little bit, and it was uncharacteristic because of how well Carson ran at the South Carolina 400. And even though he led the majority of the laps the last time he ran a Cars late model stock event here, came up a little bit short, the way that that team ran at the icebreaker, we thought maybe that would be a little cause for concern. And it did not take long for Carson and the Junior Motorsports team to put all of those worries aside, as you mentioned, in your call to the finish. And now this team is delivering a statement about their 2023 campaign with this victory.
That they are. And this is a driver who admittedly was a little bit nervous. He talks about taking over this ride that Josh Berry had been so successful in for Junior Motorsports for a very long time. And that's pretty intimidating for a young driver to get in that situation, to know that you have race cars under you that are capable of going to victory lane. But I think he put all those worries aside last year, and you add on that the experience that he's getting driving for Junior Motorsports and coming to racetracks like this time and time again. I think we're seeing a better version of Carson Quaffle this year, which is hard because he was so good last year too.
Hard to believe, but they have set the bar quite high, and he is getting set to celebrate a victory for the first time in 2023. James Pike is standing down in victory lane. We'll throw it down to Pike, who will be standing trackside with a familiar name in Edelbrock victory lane, Carson Quaffle.
Big run for Carson Quaffle at the end of the race to get it done and find himself in victory lane yet again in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour. Big swig of water there. It was a tough battle at the end of the race with Brendan Queen before he gets out now. Butterbean coming over to give a good handshake. Congratulations. And I think a cap tip to one another on the hard racing but clean racing at the end of the Aaron's 125. And then Butterbean will step out of the way, and it will be Carson Quaffle's stage to come out and celebrate. Here he comes out of the Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet Camaro to go to victory lane for the first time in 2023. Water, confetti, all sorts of things everywhere. And we'll get a quick word with Carson. Carson, you said you wanted the bottom. You got the bottom. Was that the difference in the end of this thing?
I think we just had a pretty good, strong car there at the end. I think we were a little faster than Butterbean and Tyrell there at the end. Last 40 or so laps, I kind of figured that out. I was trying to work around the 03 for quite the last run, really, like the whole last 50 laps, just trying to get around him. Good run. I was just trying to get around him, and I could never really set it up, and those restarts, they really helped me out. I was able to fire off really good, and it seemed like his car kind of took a few laps just to get heat back in the tires or grip on the track, whatever you want to call it. But just can't thank all the team, Bass Pro Shops, Junior Motorsports, Chevrolet, Brian, and everybody in the team for preparing me a good car and getting me to victory lane.
You slid a little bit back in the early part of this race. How tough is it to save at a place like this where you know you might be giving up track position early on, but you know you need it at the end, so you're more running to a number than anything else?
Yeah, I was actually trying to go forward there at the beginning. I couldn't. We were too wide in front of me, and I was actually my car probably got better throughout the race. I thought I began a little tight, and people, whenever I would try to roll to them to get a run on them, they'd just pull away on exit. So I was trying to get around them there, but I just could never really make it happen. And once we got single file, I just had to really run hard to try to get around the people that I could before they got too wide again. But really fast car, and glad I finally got a win here at Florence.
What's the feeling like, especially given the struggles that you all had in the icebreaker, to come back and be so successful a month later? What's that say about you, about your team, and how does it feel to pull it off under the circumstance?
It just shows how much we can rebound. I mean, we were, 17th or 18th at the icebreaker, struggling, and we went to Southern National, finished second, and that's kind of, obviously, we didn't really weigh a bunch of our finish in at the icebreaker into what we were thinking. We really don't know what happened there, but we were able to rebound here and make a few changes to the car, but mainly just be more prepared for the race and how we wanted to run it. Here we are.
The defending champion is back in victory lane, and that's a very, very scary thought for the rest of the field as Carson Quapple goes to victory lane here at Florence Motor Speedway in the Aaron's 125.
Thanks, Pike. Great job down there trackside all night long. And I know we're not necessarily done with you just yet, but there is Carson Quapple placing the first win sticker on his car for the Solid Rock Carriers car store in the late model stocks in 2023. Blake, is it too early to pose the question? How many of those may this young driver be able to populate on that car? Wow. Number one, what a race. As a matter of fact, just kind of looking over in my own personal memory bank right now, I don't recall a time where, and I think this is pretty indicative, if you will, as to how this race unfolded. A lot of the key players stayed up in the mix all night long. And we never saw some of these names fade from the front of the running order. If not, they didn't go too far. And it appears as though they pressed all night long.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't think we were expecting to see because, again, the balance is between patience and saving tires and all those things. But the drivers who pushed were rewarded. We saw some fall back throughout the field, throughout the night, but certainly so the cars that were fast and the drivers that knew how to drive them, they were up front. But for more from our second place finisher, Butterbean Queen is standing by with our very own James Pike. James?
Queen P2 this evening here for Butterbean in the Aaron's 125. And Brendan, did you need a long run at the end of that race to really play to your car's strengths?
Man, I'm known for dropping to the back in these races, so I tried to learn a lot tonight by staying forward all night, which I learned a lot. Big confidence booster for myself. The 8 was definitely a little better at the end. I was able to just really protect the bottom and keep him behind me, and a caution come out, and I felt like to win, I needed to take the top or at least to finish second, because if I stayed on the bottom, I was scared I was going to be too free, wreck the 8, wreck myself, and I'd rather get out of here with a second than tore up stuff. And, Carson's always ran me good, so I didn't want to do nothing crazy. Hated I spun the tires and got into him on that restart, but, in the 1, he got into the door a little bit. That's racing. I'd have done the same thing. And almost like a 400 rematch between us, so that's pretty cool. I just hope I can be the guy to battle them all year. I know they're going to be tough, and I'm making gains with my new team, LPP, which pressure's on me to perform, like I keep saying. So wish we'd have came up one spot better, but qualified second, led some laps, ended up second. Not a bad night. Just got to thank the man above, keeping us all safe, and Doug and my whole team for calling great calls today, and my OG spotter, Phil Warren, back on top tonight. That was cool. I wish I could have got a picture took with him tonight. And, I thank Lee Pulliam and his whole organization for, believing in me, really.
He looked at me right before we came on for the interview, and he said, that was a good race, wasn't it? And even though it might not be the finish he wanted, I think he knows that the fans were the real winners tonight at Florence.
I can agree wholeheartedly with that statement there, James Pike. And Brendan Queen certainly took the fight to him here tonight. And, golly, what a race we just saw. I mean, I know it's easy to say, but time and time again, man, that was just such an incredible battle.
And I got to tell you, when you look at some of the characters and personalities that make up the Cars Tour, I mean, I grew up watching the sport in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I recall watching some of the old short track days where you had your fixtures in the sport. Say, Dennis Setzer, Kevin Sawinski, Mike Garvey, all those names that were synonymous with short track racing. The Cars Tour has gotten back to that, but we also have several personalities that we're being able to shine a spotlight on. And another one in the field that has really had this kind of scratch and claw his way with his family-owned team to an opportunity to be on the podium here after we weren't sure we were going to see this car after the damage they sustained at Southern National is that of Ronnie Bassett Jr., who was standing by with Pike.
Ronnie Bassett takes a swig at the Gatorade bottle after the third place finish this evening. And Ronnie, where did you find that speed at the end? Was that the game plan the whole time, to save enough to have a car and have tire left at the end of this to go fight for the win?
I feel like all weekend we had a pretty good car. It's just hard judging off everybody what tires they got throughout the weekend, but I knew how my car was driving and how, the Ford drive was. And we wanted to qualify a lot better. We didn't want to ride around 20th all night, but it kind of worked out. We were able to keep the fenders on it this week and keep the tires on it and be there at the end.
A big run for this family-owned team out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Ronnie Bassett, third place tonight at the Aaron's 125.
Love the thumbs up there. And by the way, even in a couple of those interviews, I think we see the busiest man in motorsports journalism running around and getting interviews. Matt Weaver down in the pits. So no shocker to see that. And I got to say, Brendan Butterbean Queen, his hat with the Langley Track Champion 20 and 21. Very, very nice touch, although he's missing one championship in there.
Could also add the South Carolina 400 win to that hat. He might need a bigger hat by the time his racing career is done, because that kid's going to accomplish a lot, as is this driver, Carson Quapple, doing the hat shuffle in victory lane. One of the best and only times that you would ever want to mess up your hair after a night of hard racing. And Carson's getting the job done there, celebrating a victory. Blake, as always, it's been an absolute blast being able to do this with you for the second time. Hard to believe that we've got plenty more to come, but it's going to be a few weeks till we get to do this again, April 22nd at Hickory Motor Speedway. We're back with a late model stock and pro late model doubleheader. The rest of the series is going to see 10 of those in total. We had one at Southern National. This was the first of 6 standalones for the late model stocks, and the pros will get 3 nights under the spotlight all themselves. Of course, all of which will be live on Flow Racing. And I'm already starting the stopwatch on my phone to count down the days till we get to Hickory, because if tonight or Southern National or everything leading up to this year was any indication, I think the whole season is going to be like this. Intense, fierce, and competitive.
Every single race we have left with more to talk about than what we had coming in, and I think Hickory Motor Speedway going to be the exact same thing in 28 days' time. And by the way, Hickory, I'm pretty sure they're probably still running on Flow Racing right now. With their weekly racing series. So I might be wrong. I'm not a student of that, or I haven't been on social media to see if they're still running, but you can click over in Flow Racing and catch the last couple of laps of what will probably be, I would imagine, a second twin or so late model stock racing, as if this race tonight wasn't enough for you. But just want to say a big thank you to our entire broadcast crew here at Flow Racing, the incredible job they've done bringing you the pictures and the sights and the sounds here at Florence Motor Speedway. And for our entire broadcast crew tonight, for James Pike down on the pit lane, for Eric Brennan, my friend up here in the broadcast booth, I am Blake McCandless saying so long from Timmonsville, South Carolina, where we bid you farewell. And congratulations to tonight's winner, Carson Quapple, the winner of the Aaron's 125. We'll see you back at Hickory in 4 weeks' time.